YouTube, and this is a deck profile for a defense deck. I find that this deck is a lot weaker than my other deck list that I've posted in terms of this format. All the while, it's a bit more fun to play than most of them, and it'll boggle your mind a little bit less. There's relatively zero judgment calls in this deck. It's very straightforward. Defensive decks always will be missing tempo, and that's the reason why I find that they'll never be a competitive deck. But I've had a lot of fun playing this deck, so I'm going to share the deck list with you. So it starts off with 3 Snowman Eater. Snowman Eater is a great card. 1900 defense is a lot in this format, and it'll deal with whatever attacks it. Stardust aside. Legendary Jiu-Jitsu Master. Place out of them as well. It does most everything that the Snowman Eater does just as well, except for this card can take away a draw of your opponent if he attacks with something that's an actual card, not a synchro. 3 main deck DD Crow. Just for those times where your opponent will get really annoyed. It's also pretty good against Dark World. Dark World gets really frustrated when their monsters don't come back. 2 Effect Veilers. Now, I'd run a set of Effect Veilers, but I just find that DD Crow is better. Though it's possible, like I've been testing back and forth between 3 Effect Veilers and 2 DD Crows. It just seems that 2 Veilers is better than having 3. Because sometimes you really just want to have graveyard hate rather than on the field hate. 2 Penguin Soldiers. Now, Penguin Soldier is a card that I find is really underrated. It's a card that I've thought about playing in other decks on the sideboard, just because if your opponent doesn't see it coming, it will wreck just about everything that I've seen. Synchro monsters hate it. Most tempo players hate it because it gets them off of what they're doing. It gives you back a clear board, and this deck is really trying to go 1 for 1, so clearing their board is a great move. Neospatian Granule. This guy's just annoying. It trades with every synchro monster. Every synchro monster, every XYZ monster. It just gets rid of them. Thunder King Ryo. I figured why not. It's got great attack power, it gives this deck some offense, and it also stops most decks cold. Debris Dragon. There's a lot of targets for it, including Snowman Eaters. There's also a Dandelion as a target for it. Sangam gets everything. 2 Kaias, because there's really not much attack power and it sucks to just sit around and do nothing. Kaias gives you a little bit of a forceful edge with this deck. Gores, for those times where your opponent destroys your entire field. And that's it for the monsters. For the spell cards, staple, staple, pretty much staple, 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 staples. There's nothing to be said with these. They're evident and you know why they're being played. For the traps, staple, more staples, staples. Now is where it gets into the funny stuff. I really like this card. Mind Crush is great. If your opponent plays into one of your legendary Jiu-Jitsu Masters, or plays into one of your Penguin Soldiers, you immediately have a target for it. It will give you enough information that even if it fails, you're still ahead. Now, Compulse. Most people know what this card does. It's also good with Mind Crush. Now, with all the high defense monsters in this deck, I figured this card exists, why not use it? D2 Shield is a defense modifier, so you can play it during the damage step, meaning there's not many cards that'll counter it. And if you use it on a legendary Jiu-Jitsu master, until they have a hard removal for it, the game is yours. You set the pace, because 3600 defense cannot be killed by normal means of battle. Same thing goes for a Snowman Eater. You play it on a Snowman Eater, 3800 defense. You're going to get in a good chunk of damage on your opponent, and they're not going to be able to move the board. And now, a card that I've been testing, and I find just makes a whole bunch of people cry. Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. Yeah, Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. This card is ridiculously good. It stalls everything. It hits lightsworn. It hits Dark World. It hits every synchro deck that's trying to do anything. Stops Stardust. Stops just about everything. The only thing it doesn't touch that annoys me is Librarian. But Librarian is seldom the problem that this deck will run into, seeing as most of these decks try and kill with something that's level 6 or higher. It stops all level 6 or higher special summon monsters. Now for the extra deck. The extra deck's just a pile of usual suspects. Bryanak, Scrap Dragon, Thrashula, Formula Synchron, Black Rose Dragon, Ancient Fairy Dragon, Iron Chain Dragon, Magical Android. That's been replaced by Librarian, but I find in this deck you'd rather have the life points. Colossal Fighter, Stardust, Armory Arm, and turning your defense into offense all the time. Levia Dragon. Levia Dragon is usually the monster I used to kill. Two of my defense guys just stack on top of each other and become a 2500 beat stick. Then I have a Zenmeister and a Utopia. I was running 2 Utopias, but then people pointed out to me that Zenmeister's ability actually is relevant in this deck. There is Snowman Eaters, and Snowman Eaters are when they're turned face up. So if you use Zenmeister's ability on it, it'll destroy another monster. I also have Penguin Soldiers, which are also a flip effect. Does the same thing. Activate another Penguin Soldier, which usually means that I've bounced your guys so I can get through some damage, attacking with the Penguin Soldier and the Zenmeister, and then I'll use the Zenmeister's ability on the Penguin Soldier to either bounce whatever monster my opponent has left that I couldn't deal with the first flip, and the Penguin Soldier. The Penguin Soldier going back to your hand means you can use it over again, and Penguin Soldier is just a nasty card in this deck. So that's the deck, and I hope you enjoy it.